Thanks for downloading this episode from Teachers Talk Radio. You can find the full schedule and listen back to all our shows at ttradio.org. This show is brought to you in partnership with the Witherslack Group, experts in special education and care. Enjoy the podcast.
Good evening, everybody. I hope you can hear me. It's Tuesday, it's the Late Show, and you're here with me, Lucy Neuburger. We're back again, and in a short while, I'll be bringing on Hattie to chat to me, who's already in there. She's also host of Chronicles of a PGC podcast, which I'm sure she will tell you briefly about in a little while. But before we get into all that, you know me, I like to do a bit of a weekly recap to tell you everything that I've been up to in the teaching world, everything that's been going on, give you a few laughs, and just, I don't know, I suppose make you feel better about your own teaching, if you like. Now, the funniest story I have to tell you this week is the moment I was humbled by a girl I actually tutor. I used to teach her at school, and she's now in year 6. And I tutor her for maths on a Monday, a large part of which is spent listening to Disney songs as well, but don't tell anybody. It seems to help. It seems to work. But let me tell you something. As we were heading out the door to for her to be picked up, because I tutor her at school, we were sort of chatting away, and she's asking me kind of, oh, miss, how old are you? And I said, oh, I'm 33. And she said, oh, okay. I think you need a lover. Sorry, pardon? I think you need a lover, miss. Okay. I mean, what on earth you say to that when that comes from an 11-year-old, I'm not quite sure. But if you have what you would say to an 11-year-old there, then please be my guest. I think I just looked at her in absolute horror, as if to say, okay then, and quickly sort of rushed her out the door. Luckily, she's a student I have a very, very good relationship with. But yes, there's nothing more humbling than an 11-year-old telling you that you need a partner. So there you go. So that was a moment that has stuck with me and probably will stick with me for a very, very long time. Also interesting. What else? I've just recovered from a hideous bout of gastroenteritis. It seems that every single, and I seem to say this a lot, but every single illness imaginable is going around schools at the moment. Things that seem to have been dug up from times gone by as well. I know that flu A has gone around my school, avian flu, gastroenteritis has done the rounds, and the charming little trip hazards in year 1 have got threadworm, or is it pinworm, or something like that. So, I mean, honestly, it is a hotbed of disgusting where I am, and I really don't know what to do apart from maybe walk around in a giant hamster ball. But it seems as though as soon as the masks came off, that all hell has broken loose. I think we knew though that this winter was going to be a bit dodgy in terms of illness, but this I think takes the cake this year. I mean, I seem to have had everything since June. I've had, what have I had? Let's reel off a fun list of things, shall we? I've had since June, I've had shingles, COVID for the second time, and gastroenteritis, and that's between June and November. And I never used to be this person. I never used to get, anything. I used to have maybe a cold a year, and since, I don't know, I think it is since maybe the masks came off, my body's just gone to pieces, and it's really quite sad. So I've actually gone on a bit of a, when I say a health kick, I don't mean anything dramatic. Like, I haven't cut anything out of my life. There's still the old glass of wine at the weekend, and chocolate and carbs are definitely not going anywhere. So Charlie Burley, if you listen back to this, I'm still keeping all those things. Those of you who know Charlie Burley, he is the teacher's health coach. But I think he would encourage, everything in moderation, including moderation. So that's what we're going for, but just a lot more fruit and veg, and just trying to keep that immunity, keep that resistance up, which can be tricky, particularly when, certainly as the evenings are getting colder, all you want to do is curl up in a heap and, well, drink wine and eat chocolate, really, and watch terrible things on Netflix. And that's the other thing I've got to stop doing. My Netflix viewing, certainly in the winter, it just gets out of hand. And as I was starting to think about, because my mum invariably will ask me soon what I want for Christmas, and she asks me this every year, and every year for at least the last decade, she has had the same answer, which is a chocolate orange and to be left in peace. Thank you very much, because I'm not a lover of Christmas. I know. I feel the scowling coming at me, and I've said it before and I will say it again, and I'm sure I'll end up doing a show about Christmas at some point where I won't drag it through the mud. I won't do that, but I think it's because as teachers, Christmas has started for us now, really, hasn't it? Particularly if you are in primary school, it begins now. I know that in my school they're rehearsing the little fir tree down in the younger years, and they are trying to turn the hall into a magical forest at the moment. Whether they succeed or not remains to be seen. Mercifully, the Christmas tree hasn't turned up yet, so I feel like that's not so bad. But song rehearsals will begin in earnest soon for our Christmas bazaar, and I'm not a lover of Christmas songs either, so I feel like that that hearing those on and off for the next however long is not going to be particularly joyful. But I'm going to get into the spirit. I think you have to. I think when there are kids around, you have to get into the spirit of Christmas. Otherwise, you're just a miserable old fart, really, aren't you? So I'm going to, for the kids, I'm going to get stuck in and I'm going to get excited. Anyway, that's enough of life's goings on. I feel like we should get stuck into this evening's show. So before I bring Hattie on to sort of chat with me and share her own stories about her own PGCE and about kind of things that have gone on and try to help out some of the some of the ECTs and some of the PGCE or ITT students that are out there at the moment, I thought I would sort of share with you sort of some of my own stories, really, or some of my own research as well. So I trained 7 years ago now. Yeah, 7 years ago. And it was a journey, shall we say. I came to teaching a little bit later, so I trained when I was 26. And one of the biggest things actually that sticks with me, and something that's still a peeve, and I know came up in another show this week, I think it was actually Mr. P talking to Tom Rogers about grammar teaching and about how it's completely lost the plot, and how, how can we as adults expect kids to do this when we can't even use them correctly ourselves, and when Michael Gove can't even use them correctly himself, because we was talking about when he was education minister. So one of my fondest, I suppose, memories of my PGCE is learning what a fronted adverbial was at the age of 26. And by that point, I'd been through uni once, as we all have if we do teacher training as a postgrad. And I had a master's, and I'd never looked at an essay I'd written or a thesis or anything like that and thought, do you know what? That would really sing with a fronted adverbial. And I'm sure none of you have ever looked at any writing you've done, be it blog posts or books or whatever, and thought the same thing. But hey ho. So that's one of my stories. I'm sure many more will come up as we go through. But also to those of you listening, if you have questions or worries, because I want this show to be lighthearted, but I also want it to be helpful to those out there who are well and truly stuck into their teacher training or their ECT year at this point, because I find that certainly the October, so the post half term to Christmas push, to me is the worst part of any teaching year. It's cold, it's dark, the illnesses are flying, it's tiring, and I feel like from January onwards you can kind of get stuck in and get involved. So I'm here and Hattie's here, and I hope that more people are going to join us as well. We've currently got Miss MM in as well. We've got Natalie, and we've got Ivana in. So hopefully, please tweet out about the show, and hopefully some ECTs or some people who are teacher training will join us. But if not, Hattie and I are still going to chat away and to share our thoughts and maybe some tips about getting through the next few weeks and anything else that we feel might be beneficial to anyone going through their teacher training right now. So, Hattie, are you there?
Hi, I'm here.
It's lovely. I should also say I'm actually welcoming Hattie on. I've done Hattie's podcast, and so it's very nice to have her on my radio show this evening. This has been a long time coming, I feel, Hattie.
It has. Thank you for having me on, though.
I'm very relieved that you were able to make it. But just to to those who are listening in and to those who may listen back to this, could you please just give a quick introduction with as much or as little detail as you like as to who you are and where you're at in your teaching career at the moment?
Yeah, of course. Hi, I'm Hattie. I am a business studies teacher. So I worked at a secondary school last year, but now I'm in further education. I am in my second year of teaching, so I'm a second year ECT. Um, all very complicated with my QTS status, but I'm sure we'll get onto that at some point. Um, I also host the Chronicles of the PGCE podcast, which started as a bit of a reflection of my own PGCE, but has kind of taken on a life of its own ever since. And Lucy, I've got to say, I've got no idea what a frontal adverbial is.
So a fronted adverbial is an adverbial you can use at the beginning of a sentence, and there are several different types as well. There's adverbials of time, manner, place. I think position is one. I can't even. Do you know what, Hattie? The worst thing is that I can't even remember half of them. And to confess, and to any ECTs or those of you who are teacher training at the moment who are listening to this, thinking, "Oh my goodness me, I don't remember doing any of this grammar at school. I have no idea how I'm going to retain this all." I still look it up before I teach it most of the time. So it's okay. All right. And I'm fairly sure, particularly when you get to year 5 and year 6, that most of those teachers are looking it up as well, unless they've been doing it for a very, very long time. And anyone who says they don't is probably telling you a bit of a fib. Although I'm not going to shame any teachers. There's some people who can probably retain it and probably remember it better than I can. But I'm going to hold my hands up and say I am that person who will look it up prior to a lesson.
Most teachers do. I still look at the formulas for my business lessons and a lot of theory. I still have to look up. So that's still a thing, even at secondary and further education as well. Even though I'm a subject
Yeah.
specialist.
No, go ahead.
No, that was all I was going to say. But we're meant to be subject specialists, but there's things you don't learn during your degree and at school yourself that you now have to teach.
Oh, most definitely, or things that you just have not done for a long, long time. And I think, and I don't know if you found this, Hattie, when you did your PGCE, but I found mine was quite certainly at university, because I did PGCE. It was quite curriculum heavy. There was a lot of emphasis on a lot of your, or vast majority of your lectures were centered around curriculum. And I found that quite overwhelming, particularly as some of them, particularly the English and maths ones, were 3 hours long.
Wow.
Yeah.
Um,
And most days of the week. And so there's no way you're going to retain all that.
No, and to be honest, my PGCE, I did do a PGCE, but I did a skip PGCE, so I did the two combined. So basically, I was based on placement throughout the whole thing, but I had lectures delivered at my placement. So
Okay.
yeah, every Monday and Tuesday in the morning and afternoon, we'd have teachers from the college where I was training delivering lectures. So it was a very unique PGC. I don't think it exists in many places, but it was accredited by a university. So it is a PGC, but it's a skit at the same time. And I was training with trainees all from completely different disciplines. So I trained with 3 law trainees, a politics, a art, a media, an English, and a sport. So
Oh, wow.
yeah, so there wasn't really much actually based around my subject and my curriculum, but I did a lot of that with my mentor. So yeah, it's very different.
I mean, we'll touch on mentors in a minute, because I know that's a big thing, and I'm sure you've got some stories to tell, as have I. But just interestingly, I mean, I don't know if you know this, Hattie, but this show tends to go down a bit of a research rabbit hole, usually courtesy of my kind of deep dive into the internet, and I tend to come up with all kinds of weird and wonderful stuff. But I actually was looking at the ITT core content framework, which, by the way, is riveting reading should you need some bedtime reading, but I'm sure you've got better things to do with your time. And interestingly, curriculum is only the third area. So they talk about kind of 8 sections to ensure congruence with teacher standards. But they only list curriculum as number 3, which I thought was quite interesting. But above that, I suppose, in order to deliver curriculum effectively, you've got to have, well, knowledge of pedagogy. For some people, that's their pet peeve word, and behaviour management are both placed above curriculum, which I thought was quite interesting.
I think I can kind of see the logic.
Yeah.
There, but you can have the best behaved class in the world and you can have all the pedagogical ideas, but if you don't know the subject, you're going to struggle.
For sure. And I think, there's always areas for development in teaching. And this is another thing that I would say to teachers who are early on in their career. That is what this profession is. We are constantly developing. There's constantly areas for improvement. You constantly need to be doing CPD, which is a whole other conversation that we've had before, and we will undoubtedly have again, because there's lots of ranting and raving attached to that. Its availability, lack of its effectiveness, yada yada. But there are always, and particularly with curriculum knowledge, and whether you are secondary or whether you are primary, and of course in primary we have that difficulty of multiple subjects and trying to keep on top of as many different things. But I've said it before, I will say it again. Look it up, have stuff nearby, use your colleagues, use helpful resources. I have definitely had to I was that person who really struggled with maths in school, and it's now my favorite thing to teach, but it has taken me probably up until now to really be a confident maths teacher by practicing and by actually doing it alongside with them. And often I used to do sort of little mini, when I had to do assessments with my class, I used to do it with them, because, and I treat it as kind of a bit of a thing. They'd almost try to treat it as a bit of love, because saying, go on, miss, can you do as well as us? And sometimes they did beat me on it, but I think that's it also shows a human side to you as well.
Totally. I do that as well. So because you've always got to have the answers if you're going to give them questions, but I do the tasks that I'm setting myself, because one, it'll stop me in terms of setting questions that they can't do, making sure that it's actually accessible. But two, it keeps my subject knowledge up to date. So I teach a class which is a group of students that haven't achieved the GCSEs that they need to get onto level 3 courses. So they're all retaking GCSEs. So the course I teach is a level 2 course. And I was teaching a concept called break even today. And I looked at a question and thought, hang on, they're not going to be able to do that, because I'm looking at that and I can't do that. So then I realised that was in my own planning, that I had to go back and quickly change something. Now, luckily, I've really got my class on side, so I could have a bit of a joke. I was like, oh, guys, hang on, this isn't right. Let me change this. But it really, really worked that I needed to do that beforehand. So it's definitely something worthwhile having a look at and making sure that you can do that as well.
And I've often done the thing as well where I've actually certainly with problem solving in maths, where in my head I know the answer, but trying to articulate it in a way that a 10-year-old is going to understand. And I'll often say to them, do you know what, I'm going to go and look at what White Rose, which is a math scheme we follow, have said. And they're quite used to me doing that, because I've said, I need to train you to be able to answer these questions in the way that the scheme wants you to. So let's see what they've said and let's model our answers around that. And I don't think there's any shame in doing that either. And I think a lot of the time, again, early career teachers think, oh gosh, got to be perfect, got to kind of know it all, got to be. No, you don't.
No, totally agree with you. And to be honest, my classes quite like it when I sometimes make a mistake because, as you said, it shows that I'm a human, and it also sets the classroom environment that, do you know what, mistakes are okay. Because I say it to my classes at the beginning of every year, I don't care if you get it wrong, I just want you to try.
Mm.
So if I'm making a mistake, it sets that tone of, obviously, I'm not going to make them all the time and make them on purpose, but
No.
it sets the tone that, okay, she made a mistake. So it's safe for me to make a mistake too.
Yeah, and I think that so much of early career teaching is like that. And it's there. I think a lot of people outside of the profession expect us to kind of pop out as a finished product, and even to an extent sometimes within the profession. But what I have taken over the last sort of seven years, although it feels like twice that amount of time, is that actually, do you know what? You have got to perfection. It doesn't exist in this
No.
profession, and the sooner you make peace with that, the happier time you will have.
Yes, totally. Completely.
And I think that would almost probably be one of my overarching messages to early career teachers, is that striving for that perfection, just don't put your energy into that. Put your energy into, going lesson by lesson each day, learning from it, allowing those mistakes to happen, and going along with it. And actually you'll find a lot of the time that I mean, in my experience, certainly kids respond really well.
Yeah, completely. And so in my college, they call us by our first name because they're sixth formers. Um, one of them put their hand up and went, "Hey, it's all right. You're allowed to make a mistake. It's okay. It's cool. We'll forgive you." It
That's
built my.
lovely.
I know, and this is a student who I've been trying to build that relationship with, and it just really solidified things today, actually.
Oh, that's lovely. And I think that, if they're prepared to forgive you, then you need to forgive yourself.
Totally, completely.
Oh, fantastic. Well, I think that's positive, and I think that's really good. And so hopefully that the ECTs and the PGC students listening to this, or the ITT students listening to this, will take that on board and understand that actually, we're not just saying this for the sake of saying it. We're saying it because actually we have both lived this ourselves at various points, and it's don't be like me and wait 7 years to accept and acknowledge that you can't keep it all in your head.
Yeah, no, don't. It's not possible.
Right. I also want to talk to you, because you mentioned this already, talking about mentorship. And
Yeah,
I'm sure you've got some stories to tell. Now, mentorship, I know, can be very hit and miss, and it's a kind of a case, particularly in that training school. It's kind of a case of who you get, really, and you have to work alongside them. And I think it's difficult to kind of reconcile the fact that you're trying to learn, but you're also in someone's space that they've kind of curated for their class, for them, and you're sort of an interloper almost.
yeah. It's weird, isn't it?
It is a weird thing, and I think that, I mean, I found my in school mentor. I sort of, unfortunately, she was, I mean, not unfortunately that she was older than me, but she was older than me. She was sort of, I think, thinking about leaving the profession as well. And it wasn't, the dynamic wasn't what I'd necessarily hoped for. But then I kind of, in a way, and it sounds terrible, but go with me on it. She
Yeah,
ended up being quite unwell for sort of the second half of the autumn term. So I was pretty much left on my own for about, I think it was about 3 weeks in the end, 2 or 3 weeks. And in a way, it was fantastic because I had to step up, because that class was mine in that time. I had the teaching assistant in there. I was very fortunate that in that class there was a full-time TA, but it meant that I just had to crack on and do.
yeah,
So that was a very steep learning curve in that respect, and still very early on in my placement. So in a slightly morbid way, she did me a favor, I guess.
yeah, yeah. I think I've got to be honest, I was so lucky with my mentor, and I've still got a really good relationship with her now because I teach now where I trained. and in the same department. So I'm not teaching her subject anymore because she does A level. But I still have a really good relationship with her. And I think I was very lucky that we're very much on the same wavelength. She's not that much older than me, but she loves her job. She completely loves her job. And she's just genuinely really supportive. However, I've know a lot of PhD students that were doing it at the same time as me, not necessarily at the same placement, but that were doing it at the same time as me that were not so lucky and had really either bad relationships with their mentors or their mentor just wasn't very much present. So as you say, I think it is very hit and miss with who you get. But I've got to say, I was so incredibly lucky with my mentor.
I mean, I think it's a difficult one because there is the sort of, on the one hand, if I was in the position now with that mentor, the sort of the advice I would give was be find a way to make it work, take on board what they have to say. They might not be your favorite person in the world if it's just a little bit sticky, if it's kind of, because ultimately they're your mentor for a reason. And okay, this is temporary, and actually if you make a good account of yourself, which is what should have been going through my head, but I think at the time I was a bit sort of, oh, she doesn't like me, and I found that as a result my training time at that school was quite difficult. But it's very easy to look back in hindsight. So I think I would say, if it's workable, then you just have to almost kind of take on board what they say, but also it doesn't stop you going to other people to seeking advice. It doesn't stop you going and observing other classes. It doesn't stop you asking for help in other places. So please don't feel that if your mentor is not necessarily your chosen touchstone, that's not the end of the world. But then I suppose the difficulty is if you're advising, at what point do you, if is a mentor really not okay? Is a mentor really the wrong person? At what point do you have to flag it? And I'm not sure what I would say to that because it hasn't happened to me. I don't know, but I suppose it would be, if they really are just, not being helpful at all, or they're not giving you the time to teach that they need to, or they're not providing you with that feedback, then maybe that is the point where you have to speak to someone at your university. And of course they don't want to be presented with a problem. Of course they don't, they've got a lot of students to think about. But at the same time, I would say to people, do not suffer in silence if you really are finding that your relationship with your mentor is not in any way helping you progress either through your ECT year or through your teacher training. And I don't know if you have anything to add to that, Hattie.
Yeah, and like at the end of the day, your university want you to succeed. So they're not out to get you. And I know sometimes it might feel like that, but genuinely, they really want you to succeed. So if it is, and even if it's just that you feel that they're perhaps being really overcritical or something's overstepped the line, just speak to your personal tutor or even the head of department. Make sure you're doing it in a professional manner. So don't just go in and go, I hate this person, they are awful. But go in with reason, saying, this is why I think this is affecting my development. And there's nothing really anyone can say to that because it's your development, it's your training, it's your PGCE. And most of the people here, and I hate to turn higher education into a commodity, but at the end of the day, you are paying to train and it is your career. So
I mean, I think that's fair enough because you're not wrong.
Yeah, exactly. So you do need to, if something's not working, just say something, because it happened on my PGCE where somebody did say, I need a change of mentor. And it was actually through nobody's fault. It just, I think somebody was off sick or something like that for an extended amount of time. And their mentor changed and it came out for the best. So you do need to speak out if something's not working.
I mean, you've actually reminded me of when you say, act professionally and kind of have an adult conversation. Don't do what I did, which is I trained at Canterbury Christchurch, and we had these people called link tutors. They were kind of your liaison between university and between the school. And you never really particularly saw them, but they turn up periodically to check whether you were kind of ticking off all the things that you have to tick off, whether you taught PE, whether you'd done this, done that, whether you'd observed this, observed that, whatever. And I hadn't seen mine for a particular period of time. And so we had a meeting and we were sort of talking through various things. And I was told, I think it was something to do with phonics. I was told that I could pass my sort of phonics element by doing small group teaching. And so that's what I had planned to do. But my link tutor came and said, no, you have to actually go and teach a proper class, a proper year one or EYFS class. And I vehemently disagreed with this. And I think there was a lot of things at play here. Obviously, the stress of the PGCE. I can't remember what time of year it was, but certainly I was sort of well entrenched at this point, and I was sort of going back and forth, and in the end I stood up and said, this meeting is over, and I walked out. Now, I do not advise this. Don't do this. Don't be like Lucy, because mercifully, my personal tutor at university, someone who I still respect to this day, so if you ever listen to this, hi Andy Blaw, who is now, I think, doing he's doing part of the teacher training program, I think at Derby University. I think he's over there now. But I got an email from him, I think about a day later, saying, Lucy, is there anything you want to tell me about your meeting with your link tutor? And I said, maybe. And so he summoned me in and sat me down, and I told him what I did very honestly, because we had a very good relationship. And I deserve to be treated like a naughty child. And he sort of sat me down and he said, do you think that was the right thing to do, Lucy? And I said, no. So what are you going to do next? Apologize? Yes, you are. Go and apologize. So I did, and everything was fine. And it was certainly not my finest moment, but it's also, I think, a lesson to those around you. Do try and not. PGCs are emotional. They are tough in so many ways. Teacher training, whichever way you're doing it, even if you're, doing B.Ed as well, it is tough. And I am a very outwardly emotional person, but don't walk out of meetings with professional people. It's not a good look.
No, and if it is getting to the point, because there were definitely times on my PGC where I was locked in a room crying, but I had a really good relationship with my personal tutor, who kind of opened the. I was very lucky. They opened the space to make sure that if we were feeling a bit crap, we could go and be honest with her. And there were absolutely times I sat there and cried to her about not just my teacher training, but things going on in my life. And it really helped in terms of the fact that I had somebody to talk to that was a little bit of a critical friend, but I could off steam a little bit with, but still in that environment and knew exactly what I was going through. So if you can find somebody that you can talk to and just be a bit human with during your PGCE, it is really important. So definitely try to.
I wholeheartedly agree with that. And I think you have to remember, and I think it's something that maybe those of us who've been in it for a bit longer, is that was them once. They had to do this too. They went through this too. And I think that it's important to remember that, and to remember that actually, at some point, they too will have been that person sniveling in a cupboard, or crying into the steering wheel, or wailing into the ice cream sitting on your sofa at home. We have all been there, and no, it ain't pretty, but I think that, these people who sign up to be mentors, and there are many, many, many good ones out there. There are many that are not so good, but they have all been you at some point, and maybe in some way that does help you kind of think, okay, if they can get this far, then so can I.
Yeah, no, completely. And everyone had to train. Everyone had to train one way or another, even if it was 40 years ago. And I was talking to one of the more experienced teachers in my department, who's, you know, her sons are at university. She's got her oldest son is a year younger than me. She's been teaching for about 25, 30 years now. And she still has her PGC folder at home. Like, she knows exactly where her PGC folder is. So, it really does show that everyone does remember their PGCE or their teacher training or however they trained. So, everyone was there. And it just reminds you of that.
Oh, most definitely. Do you know where your folder is, Hattie?
Yeah, it's on my bookshelf. I've got 3.
I was going to say, I think I've got the mine in the garage at my parents' house actually, and every so often I get a message from my mum being like, "Are you ever going to get rid of this stuff?" And there is a part of me that thinks, "Do I still need it?" But there's also a part of me that knows the blood, sweat, and tears that went into the stuff that's in those folders.
Yeah, no, that folder's never going. I don't care if I leave teaching or whatever. That folder is staying on my bookshelf.
It's going to be buried with it.
Yes. I carried those 3 folders across Manchester every day for a year.
Oh my gosh. Goodness knows, I'd love to see what's in some of mine. And actually, interestingly, you just reminded me of another conversation I had with someone who Lawrence, who's a friend of TTR, who's actually going through his primary PGC at the moment. He sadly couldn't make it in to chat to us this evening, but I know he's here in spirit.
Yeah.
He was fussing about the making of worksheets and the use of things like Twinkle, Classroom Secrets. And I don't know, that's probably less of a thing for you in higher education. But what are your thoughts on kind of pre-made worksheets and early careers teachers using things like that?
See, I'm in 2 minds because half of me thinks, you need to learn how to plan. And I was really lucky that last year there were resources there for me to use, but I was very much expected to take those resources and make them my own completely and create my own activities and my own worksheets from that. And that's still kind of the case where I am now. I mean, all our lessons are completely planned for us. But again, you've got to make it your own. So my opinion really is you can use what's there, absolutely, because that's a great model there for you of how to do things. So we talk about modelling and scaffolding to our students, but at the end of the day, that's how we all learn, a lot of us. So that's a great way to learn what worksheets and activities should be like and could be like for your classes and those activities. But only you know your class and only you know your style. So take them, but make them your own and adapt them, especially if you've got students with extra needs in your class where you might need to change things up a bit.
Make things bigger, use certain vocab lists, etc. I mean, I think that's fair enough. I think now, I mean, I get very ranty about a lot of things in teaching, Hattie, and I need to be mindful of this because I suppose it's part and parcel. Because as you say, I do fully appreciate, and as PGC students, as teacher training students, as ECTs, that learning to plan. And yes, it is a lot of detail, and hopefully you are in a school where actually you can adapt something that already exists. As you say, you can utilize, they actually save previous years' plannings and you're not having to reinvent the wheel. And there will be those fossilized teachers who will say to you, well, in my day, none of this existed. None of these kind of websites like Twinkle existed. So you should be doing everything from scratch. But the reality is as well is that these things do exist, and they exist for a reason. However, would I use one thing like Twinkle, like Classroom Secrets, like all of these things, would I use them as gospel on their own, just in its entirety. No, I wouldn't. And I think that is where, as you say correctly, you're making it your own, you're adapting it, you're piecing things together. That is the mark, I think, in a way, of a good teacher.
Yeah, and I don't know about you, but I hate using somebody else's planning, because I look at it and think, what's that? I mean, when I've seen some of the other PowerPoints that are already planned for me, I'm thinking of it and looking at it going, well, what do they want me to do with that? So I almost have to go, for my own confidence, go and adapt things. And now the course I was talking about, the level 2 course, this is actually the first time we've ever delivered this. So we are completely planning it from scratch. And this particular course, not a lot of people actually do this course. So we've had to set up like the networks for teachers who are on this course, because I think OCR are trying to phase it out a little bit. But we're having to create all of that from scratch. And that has taken us so much time and so much effort. And we're all having to work out what on earth they actually want us to do with it to meet the exam criteria. So if there is those resources there, use them, because we're finding out now how difficult it is when there are no resources.
Oh, most definitely. And I know Hannah, who's in the space, has been helping create course materials and things fairly recently. So she will be all too well aware of the energy that goes into that as well. But it's, I mean, creating any kind of planning is difficult, and making sure that you're including the correct curriculum points, making sure that you're, as you say, understanding how to utilize a teaching assistant if you have one. It is a lot. But I almost sort of say to people who are teacher training and people who are early careers teachers, is that it's a bit like learning to drive to pass your driving test. It's kind of, you will go through all this, and whether I agree with it or not is kind of neither here nor there, but it will put you in a mindset so that when you come back to do it again, it's there, or you know how to do it, or you can take what you've got and all you have to do is adapt it slightly to that new class, to that new setting. So it's, what is initially an awful lot of work actually can end up being incredibly helpful down the line.
Yeah, completely. And I've just been teaching cash flow to actually all of my classes, even though they're on different courses. And I've been able to go to my year 10 lesson from last year, just take that lesson and adapt it slightly. And that took me all of 10 minutes to do for all 4 of my classes. So the loads of planning I did last year for that lesson has saved me so much time this year. So it does help.
It does. And of course, particularly in primary, you move around year groups and things like that. And it might be that you end up taking a job that's not in the class that you trained with, or in the similar age group necessarily. But I think all the more reason, again, as you say, has to cling on to those folders, because there may come a point, even down the line a bit. And okay, what you did 5 years ago might need a bit of tweaking, a bit of adapting, but you'll open that folder, you'll probably even remember whereabouts in the folder the thing is that you need, and you'll be like, I can use that.
Yes, yeah.
It's almost a tearful moment, isn't it, where you're like, I've done this already.
Yeah, I did it last year because we also had an electronic folder. We didn't just have the physical one, we had a Google Drive folder too. And I've put it all on my current work Google Drive, and it saves me so much time.
Oh, that's brilliant. And I would also say, and this is probably a bit cheeky, but a piece of advice: if you can, before you leave your training school, either mine some of the stuff that's on there, or transfer it, as you say, to a Google folder within reason. Don't be silly about it. Some of the stuff that they don't mind you using, or that you can take forward, do it. Do it.
Most places encourage you to do that now. One of the teachers in my department, in my teacher training, just came up to her and went, Hattie, where's your memory stick? Gave her my memory stick. She came back and went, so I filled up that memory stick, and here's another memory stick. These are all the resources I had saved on my computer.
Oh, bless her. What a star.
I know, and a lot of teachers do that. She wasn't the only teacher to do that to me. And when I left my school last year, my head of department sat me down and went, by the way, I've created a Google Drive with every single resource we've got as a department. So
I want to meet these people.
honestly, they're gems. But a lot of places do that. They want, as long as you've, given some stuff to them, given them some ideas and resources, you know, that's what I like about teachers. We share things. We want each other to be good and to do as well as we can. We're a very supportive group of people, mostly.
Yes, I agree, and I think again, most teachers will not be precious about these things, and good mentors will also sort of say, hey, here's some stuff to kind of help you out a bit. Certainly, if I was going to go into any kind of mentorship role, I would do everything in my power. I think maybe because my experience was less positive, but even it doesn't have to be for that reason, but to make anyone's job that little bit easier. Now, of course, you're not there to do it for them, but in
No.
the same vein, anything that kind of just is that extra boost. And also, don't be afraid to ask as well. I mean, obviously, don't sort of give me your planning,
Yeah.
but do go to these mentors and things and say, even can I have a look? Can I have a look? And also, teachers are, I don't want to kind of sort of sell us out, but there is a little bit of ego in this profession. And if you go to some teachers and say, oh, can I see this? They'll be like, oh, they want to see my stuff. Fabulous, yes.
Yeah, completely.
And I think anyone who says otherwise is you're lying to yourself. Everyone loves a bit of flattery, particularly teachers. And if they get a chance to kind of wax lyrical about something they love, be it a subject or be it a particular piece of planning that they've done, they will do it.
Yeah, it's like when you're asked to share something in CPD, or as we call it, CPT, everyone's well up there. Like, yes, this is what I've done, and this is why you should do it too.
Oh dear, oh dear. Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right, and I think it's I certainly I'm all for sharing, and actually one of my regrets from my PGC is not making better use of sort of downloading some stuff or asking for some stuff, and also if you don't ask, you don't get. I think if someone says no to you, then they are a miserable so and so. But I should think 99% of the time, someone will take you under their wing and say, yeah, here's where this is, or I can show you this, or use my, borrow my login for this website, because there are so many blooming websites now. I mean, my my partner teacher in year 5 actually has to keep written down in her notebook all of the logins for various things. God forbid she ever loses that notebook. So I don't know if you're that person, Hattie.
Well, I don't know, with business, we're very much, there's one website and one website only.
Oh wow, well, maybe there's something in it for you to a side hustle in there for you, Hattie. You never know.
Maybe. I am an ECT, so I'm quite busy at the moment.
Yeah. Oh, the other thing, speaking about sort of ECTs and things like that, I know, I mean, I don't, well, as far as I'm aware, PGCEs still come with master's credits. Do you feel pressure to use yours?
I have already got a master's.
Yeah, me too. So I didn't
So
feel the pressure to use
no,
mine.
I don't, because I started my PGC having done a master's.
Yeah.
So student finance says no to me.
Sorry, because I can imagine that. Yeah, at this point they'd say no to me as well.
Yeah, yeah. They would let me do a PhD if I wanted to, though.
Oh joy.
I know, but I can't use my master's credits for that.
No, sadly not. I mean, the thing is, because I know that I see often a lot of tweets about, oh, did you use your master's credits? Should I use my master's credits? And I kind of think, hang on a minute, you've got a postgrad, certificate for teaching. That is something that should be pretty much. I mean, you pretty much crank out a master's in 9 months doing your PGCE. Let's be honest. I know it's not the same thing, and you don't get the same kudos for it, but you should. That's one of my many mini rants that I'm sure will happen over the course of this evening. But no, I didn't feel pressure to use mine, much for the same reason as you. But I also think that early careers teachers should take the pressure off themselves in that respect. Yes, you get those master's credits, and I do think it's naughty that they only give you 3 years to use them, but of course you can't hang on to them indefinitely. But back pocket them, I would say, and if you find the opportunity to use them, great. If not, you've got plenty to be getting on with.
Yeah, and to be honest, I don't know about you, but I found that schools actually really don't care.
No.
As long as you've got your PGCE and you've got your bachelor's, a lot of schools, sorry, don't really care what qualifications you're coming in with. It's more about what you can give to the school and what you can give to your role.
Yeah, most definitely. And I would wholeheartedly agree with that. And if you do want to flex your research muscles sort of later on or when you have the time to, there's lots of reading you can do. There's lots of things you can get involved with. You can even become a host on Teachers Talk Radio like me, and that can involve going down all kinds of weird and wonderful research rabbit holes where you can find out things that you never needed to know, but somehow find out anyway. And I've certainly done a show very recently, I think it was my last show, where I talked about access to research, and actually things like Chartered College are getting much more sort of teed up and G'd up to give teachers access to these things, maybe teachers who don't want to do a master's but still want to do academic reading. So that certainly is something that I'm very much getting behind. And then there's all kinds of things that I know Tom Rogers has set up Teach Me Icons, where lots of teachers go and give talks about different things, and that's essentially like free CPD as well, that a lot of people attend as well, and things like that, or at least online is free. I think in person there might be charges. I can't quite remember. I'm sure Tom will correct me at a later point. But there's all kinds of things like that. There's research ed as well. There's all kinds of things that down the line you can get involved in as a teacher that doesn't necessarily involve having more letters after your name. So, yeah, I think that that's all right as well. But also, I would say that, certainly in the early stages of my career, I just wanted what was keeping my head above water. It's only really now, kind of 7 years in, that I've started getting more involved in research and things like that. And again, there is time. You don't have to do it all at once.
No, and like last year, a lot of schools do have this. There was an opportunity for me to get involved in research. So we had a research group at our school, which is where it was like a TLA development group, but it was actually towards our vulnerable pupils. So we met every half term for an hour on a Monday after school, and we just spoke about research to do with a particular thing that we could do in lessons to help benefit our vulnerable pupils. There was no requirements for that. There was no interview or anything like that. It was just a really casual chat where we spoke about some research, some reading that we'd all done, and said, this is how I've implemented it into the classroom. And you don't even have to do anything formal to include more research into the classroom. You can just literally go onto the internet, do some research on some pedagogy or a new strategy. And this is why I love Teacher Twitter, because people are sharing articles all the time, or even an app like Teacher Tap, where they have that little research snippet every day. It's just something quick and easy to do, and you don't have to do anything formal for that. That can just be you doing something that you're interested in.
Oh, most definitely. And, we are awash with books as well. And there are many, many fantastic people, certainly who've been on Teachers Talk Radio. I know we had Doug Lemov on recently, who's written extensively about a variety of things. Lots of people who, pretty much, if you can dream it up, there is a book written about it in this profession, I've found, to the point where if ever I were to write a book, not that I intend to anytime soon because I haven't got the attention span. But I think it's all pretty much been. I feel like it's all been covered, and there are some fantastic ones out there. And again, I think that utilizing something like Twitter, for example, where it comes into its own and where it's very positive, is when you see ECTs and those who are teacher training reaching out and saying, "What books do you recommend?" And again, because teachers love being asked things. Oh, could recommend this. Oh, have you seen this? Da, 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 da. It's awash with stuff.
It really is. It really, really is.
And on that note, certainly advising sort of in terms of use of Twitter and things like that. So what are your feelings in terms of ECTs and PGC students making use of that? Is it something you would encourage?
I think it really helped me, if I'm being totally honest. When I set up my because I've got an actual Twitter account, but when I set up my teacher Twitter account, I only followed business teachers, and I followed lots of heads of department and all of that. And it really helped me come up with ideas for teaching or just to even ask a question. And it helped my own subject knowledge with people sharing stories around what's going on in the business world. I remember teaching a lesson last year. Is something to do with Kaizen production, which is a concept they do in A-level business. And somebody, mainly from Tutor to You, but somebody shared on Twitter how they make toast in lesson to help teach this concept. And this will forever be the best lesson that I've ever taught. It was the lesson I am absolutely most proud of, but it really got the students engaged. And if you ask any of those students about Kaizen production now, a year later, I can absolutely guarantee they'll be able to tell you about Kaizen production. And that's just an idea I got off Twitter. Now, teacher Twitter, I tend to find there's a lot of arguments, there's a lot of nuance. I remember there was an argument the other day, actually, where they were saying that if you don't hold QTS, you can't call yourself a teacher.
What?
Oh, I know. It all started into this big thing, and then they were saying if you are no longer a classroom teacher, you can't call yourself a teacher, and it was all this nonsense.
Oh,
I was like,
saw this.
yeah, it really wasn't this deep. And now I don't hold QTS because of how I trained, but I am still a teacher, and there's loads of little arguments like that. And I'd say definitely if you're training, if you're an ECT, there's no need to get involved in that. I like teacher Twitter for the lovely articles people share and for the great ideas people share about how I can teach complicated concepts. That's what I use it for. And just don't get involved in all the silliness of it.
I don't think there's anything for me to add to that, Hattie. I think you summed it up beautifully, and I would wholeheartedly agree. And actually, again, I sort of wasn't really involved in Twitter when I teacher trained, and I wish I had been. I think it would have been a really positive thing, certainly from the lesson ideas and things like that. But I absolutely echo your sentiments about not getting involved in the nonsense. And there's different nonsense every week. We've had. I don't know if you saw Pengate. Oh, you shouldn't. If children don't come to class with a pen. Oh, and Whiteboard Gate, did you see that?
I think I remember Whiteboard Gate.
Oh gosh, Whiteboard Gate, do you use them? Do you not use them? And then yeah, being able to call yourself a teacher. Oh my god, I couldn't even. But I honestly, I found it galling that even came up. To be honest.
There was like this whole thing about Ofsted the other week. I was like, listen, actually, one, can we all stop stressing about Ofsted? Can you stop talking about Ofsted? Because we're waiting for Ofsted.
Oh, stop saying Ofsted.
I know. But honestly, like, Twitter could be a great place. Like, I set up on my actual teacher Twitter account. Not
just
my
to say, there's a really
account,
good show on Teachers Talk Radio from last night about
network
Ofsted, so check it out.
Business teachers in the UK, and it was fantastic. And it's a really great resource, and it's a lovely place to share ideas. And also, if you're going through a bit of a tough day, it's really nice because people will share really positive sentiments with you and remind you that, you're not a bad person if you've had a bad lesson, especially if you're an ECT. You are not a bad person, you are just learning. But there is some silliness. Just don't get involved in it. Try to stay on the positive side of teacher Twitter and your life will be okay.
I absolutely agree. And Rogers, just so you know, we weren't ignoring you then. I did hear you. What he was saying, Hattie, because I think you were just mid flow there. He just nipped in to say that actually, was it yesterday, I believe, Rogers did a two-parter show. First part was with the lovely Mr. P, who we all love and adore. And
Yeah.
the second part was actually talking about the dreaded Ofsted, but in a very sort of interesting light in terms of, is it fit for purpose going forward? Do they need to change? Is it them that's the problem? So it's as and when, or maybe you're not in the mood for it at the moment, but maybe one to look back on and see what you think, because it was very interesting chatter all around there.
I've actually just got a notification from Apple Podcasts saying the new Mr. P episode has come up.
What, for Teachers Talk Radio or his podcast?
His podcast.
Okay. No, this was a show he very kindly came on with us yesterday. But yes, I always get the notifications for his new podcast as well. And I think they talked about Whiteboard Gate recently as well.
Yeah.
So
they also talk about adverbials.
Oh gosh, honestly, it's going to haunt me for the rest of my life. My mum tells it as a running joke. She dines out on that story, and I'm sure, people are not interested in the fact that, she likes going around asking people because she thinks it's hysterical. She's like, "Do you know what a fronted adverbial is?" She's like, she'll go and meet new neighbours. "Do you know what a fronted adverbial is?" I'm like, "Mum, people don't care." She's like, "Yes, but I now know what it is thanks to you." I'm like, "Mum, all right, but have you, but what are you writing that needs a blooming fronted adverbial?" She's like, "Oh no, nothing, but I just think it's quite funny to be able to kind of sound clever." All right, all right, Mum. All right, we'll let you have that one. Enjoy, just as you were. Right, Hattie. In a moment, I'm going to ask you my next thing about well-being and about ECT and PGC student well-being. So I'm going to give you a moment to think about that. While I do that, I'm just going to share one of our sponsors with everybody. You can also have a sip of tea as well, because I'm sure you need to make sure your voice is in check. So I'm going to share one of our lovely sponsors with you all, which is the Witherslack Group. And they are a leading provider of specialist education and care. They need people like you to help them achieve even more. And at Witherslack, you'll be given all the resources you need and offered a clear path of career progression and rewarded with some of the best salaries and benefits the industry has to offer. And Witherslack do currently have some great opportunities available if you look at their website, along with a whole host of other things, including a webinar that's coming up as well, which I believe is posted in the space at the top there, so you can see all of that. And for further information on all of this, you can go to www.witherslackgroup.co.uk. So for the jobs and things like that, it's /careers. But if you go onto the website, you can be guided around to all the other things as well, including lots of wonderful webinars and pieces of information that are very, very useful indeed. So once Hattie rejoins us in a moment, I'm hoping she has gone for a sip of tea, then I'm going to ask her and I know this comes up time and time again, and we talk about it a lot in all aspects of teaching, but particularly for this half term where coughs, colds, and if you're year one at my school, threadworm and flu A and all that jazz is going around school. And as well as all that, you're trying to plan and teach lessons. Well-being advice, Hattie, and I'm sure you've got loads. So hit me with it in terms of just keeping yourself going, keeping yourself with it in the sort of closing kind of 20. Well, I don't know if it'll take us 20 minutes, but let's see how far we get. Talk to me about your advice in that sphere, in that realm.
Become very good friends with your local chemist.
I think I'm on first name terms with my one here.
Yeah, so am I, honestly. So our department's split into two. So we have A-level business and we have vocational business. Now I'm in vocational business. This half term, every single person in vocational business has had tonsillitis, flu, that sinusitis. We've all been so sick. A-level business, despite the fact we're all in the same office, no one has been sick at all. It's been ridiculous. But we've all been really ill, and generally the one thing I'd really say in terms of well-being is learn how to say no. Learn when to take a day off. I had really bad tonsillitis and I turned up to work and every single person sent me home. And it did me the world of good. I know that teaching is really intense and we have our subject exam in January. So for us, time is even more of the essence. But learn how to take a day off. Taking one day off is not the worst thing in the world. Just learn how to look after yourself because at the end of the day, you cannot teach if you are not well. That's in terms of physical well-being, but um, I've just this term really learned how to prioritize my own health. So I've been making sure I've been going to the gym. I've been trying to make sure I sleep. And at the end of the day, yes, we've got loads of things to do. But tomorrow there's still going to be loads of things to do, no matter how much you get done today. So you can leave something till the next day. You can. It's not going to be life or death if you don't do something right this very minute. So make sure that you are sleeping. Do something you enjoy. And actually eat. Like, I remember
Oh yeah, it's a good one.
it is. During my PGCE, I think it was in September, I forgot to eat one day. I got back to my flat and I almost collapsed because I hadn't ate. And I was so ill the next day because I hadn't ate the day before. Even if it's just making sure that you sit down and have an apple or something like that. Now, I've started doing HelloFresh, and this is not an ad for HelloFresh. So please don't kill me.
Other
But
food boxes are available.
other
There we
food
go.
boxes are available. But I've started doing HelloFresh, and it's actually saved me so much time because one, I don't have to think about what I'm eating. Two, I don't have to plan it. Three, I don't have to actually go to the shop. But now I'm actually eating, and I'm eating proper meals, and it's kind of been a bit of a lifesaver as well. And I live alone, so I get the two portions, but then I save that next portion for lunch the next day.
Oh,
So
fabulous.
I know I'm making sure I'm having a proper meal as well. It's got loads of vegetables in it, and it's got all the good stuff in it. So eat, sleep, take a day off, look after yourself, and really try to connect with your family and friends. They might not be teachers, they might not get it, but like last night, I went to my dad's and I just ranted and I cried and I felt so much better this morning. So speak to the people around you as well.
Oh, most definitely. I'm going to add to your food thing and say breakfast because that is the one that
Yeah,
I used to skip. And what changed my life, and I've changed actually a Twitter teacher friend of mine. I also changed his life by introducing him to this. And it might not be the thing for you, but basically protein shakes. And I will share my recipe with you. It's basically your protein powder of choice, half a frozen banana, your milk of choice, and then any additions you like raspberries, chia seeds, whatever you want to fancy. You whizzy doo dah that up and you take it to work with you or neck it before you go to work. Either way, either works. And it just sets you up because I would love to be the person who remembers to put overnight oats in the fridge. I would love to be the person who takes, I don't know, a lovely pre-made healthy muffin that I've made, but I'm not that person. I know myself well enough by now, but I also know that I suffer from hanger. And my best friend tells me this regularly. And hanger, when you're confronted with a room full of children, is, again, not a good look. So you need something in your belly first thing in the morning. And coffee is not a food group, people.
no, it's not. One thing that everyone in my office seems to do is we have breakfast stuffs at work in terms of we don't make it like at home and bring it to work. We just have like a box of cereal in the cupboard, or the person next to me has a bag of potato cakes in her drawer, or
As you do.
Yeah, or the person next to me has a loaf of bread on her desk, and we just make it at work, and it sounds silly. Like I've got a box of cereal, a bowl, and a spoon in my drawer, and then I have my oat milk in the fridge. And when I get into work, I just make my cereal because it's something I don't have to think about in the morning at home. But when I get into work, I can just do it.
Yeah, fantastic. And I think that is so important. And obviously, some schools give you school lunch, others don't. But I think your HelloFresh idea is great. Or making dinner the night before, making double. I mean, I'm currently working my way through a massive batch of lentil bolognese. I'm hoping this is the last day today because I'm thoroughly sick of it at this point. But it is very, very, very good. But big batch things like that as well are great. And those of you who've been listening to me for a while will know that I am a massive foodie and that I talk about food way too much. And honestly, if I could do a show each week about food or somehow talk about food, I used to do a What's for Dinner feature, which I maybe need to bring back, where I used to ask people what they're having for dinner. And Hattie, I might actually ask you this evening before you go to tell me, or you can tell me now.
I had I had a lentil and roasted vegetable jumble. So I had like lentils, sweet potato, aubergine, onion, all in some harissa.
Sounds delightful.
So
Hattie, are you all right?
Yeah.
As I say, that sounds delightful. Carry on, tell me more.
That was it.
Oh, that was it. Fabulous. And the rest is for lunch tomorrow.
Yeah, so I made it twice, so the rest is for lunch tomorrow.
Fantastic. Sounds good to me. And as always, if you need recipe ideas for those of you PGCE, ECT, or if you ever want that protein shake recipe, I am happy to share it with you. Not that it's anything particularly complicated, but it has definitely been. And actually, having breakfast turned out to be a game changer for me, because trying to last until break time and then hammering down, about 8 digestives, it just is not a winner. No, but also going back to the thing you said about sort of well-being, kind of in terms of mind. So we talked about sort of body, talked about being on first name terms with your chemist. Absolutely agree with that. In terms of the mind, I echo the things you say in terms of, well, body and mind, taking a day off when you need to. I've talked about teacher martyrdom in the past. Nip the martyrdom in the bud early, okay?
Yes.
Because you're not doing them any favors. You're not doing, and also, why lug yourself all the way in to then get sent home? That's just a pain in the bum as well.
It is, and trust me, it was. Like I thought I could make it through the day, got to work, threw up, and went home. I didn't even last 20
It's not funny.
No, honestly, my colleague drove me in, and then the same colleague went, "Go home."
Oh no. I mean, I am a huge hypocrite, and lots of teachers are with this, because I can recall a time last year, and I think I've told this story before, where two of the year 3 teachers knew I wasn't particularly well one day, and I was sort of curled up in my chair trying to teach. One of them, who actually had taught year 5 before, so knew that it was her planning that I had adapted and was teaching from. So she said, "Right, where have you got to in Kensuke's Kingdom," or whatever it was, and she just picked up where I left off. The other teacher marched me downstairs and said, "Right, go home." So we have been there, but I would also say I should have gone home, and I hold my hands up, and I should have done. And I am getting much better at just going, particularly when I had the stomach bug. I mean, there was no way that I could have gone in. I mean, you can't go to work with a stomach bug with the greatest will in the world, and you're not meant to, because they usually are quite contagious. So you've got to just accept it, and it's we aren't invincible. Things will get us, and that's okay. And just make sure you've got a very good pharmacist and doctor on standby. And often when you go to the doctor and tell them you're a teacher, they just give you say, "I understand."
Honestly,
the amount of times I've had that look.
I went to the dentist a couple of months ago because I'm having a problem with my wisdom tooth. And she looked at me and went, "Are you stressed a lot?" And I went, "Yeah, why?" And she's like, "Do you grimace your face a lot? Because that's what's actually causing the issue with your tooth. Like, what do you do as a job?" And I went, "I'm a teacher." She went, "Ah, right. Okay. So we might have to just take that out then instead."
Again, I shouldn't laugh, It's just honestly the reactions you get.
I know.
Very funny indeed. Yeah, I've definitely had the withering look from the doctor. Actually, when I finally dragged myself to the doctor with this stomach bug, I was also confronted. He also happened to be impossibly good looking, which of course, when you are at your most rank,
Yeah.
you are confronted with an impossibly good looking doctor. I also had my leggings on backwards, but only discovered that when I got home.
Gosh.
So he must have thought I was complete. And then when I said to him, I work with children, he was like, uh-huh. Right? He's like, yeah, you're about the 8th person I've seen today. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
With
God.
gastric flu or whatever it was. Oh, disgusting. Then he prescribed me a laundry list of tablets and off I went. So, yes, good doctors. And much the same reaction from the pharmacist when she handed it all over to me. She was like, and I did go into the pharmacist in a mask because I felt so bad.
Yeah.
I was just like, I'm really sorry. Oh, terrible times. But no, going back to the about the mind as well, again, echoing everything you say, you've got to make time for yourself. And again, I'm a huge hypocrite with this because I have still got all the books that, well, no, I say all the books, a lot of the books that I got last Christmas and for my birthday that I have not read, and I keep meaning to. But it doesn't have to be reading. It can just be watching that rubbish on Netflix. And I know I've said that I need to stop frying my brain, but actually sometimes it's okay to fry your brain.
Totally. And the mantra I've taken, and people may completely disagree with this, but I do not work at the weekend. I don't do it. I don't get paid for the weekend. And at the end of the day, if I work at the weekend, by Monday, I'm just going to be ill and I'm just going to be sad. And why do that to myself? Like this weekend, on Saturday, I went shopping with my mum and my nana. Then I'll admit, on Saturday night, I went to my cousin's 18th birthday party. She is a student at the college that I work at, so I did see a student, but she is my cousin. Um, and then on Sunday, I went to yoga with my mum, and I didn't work. And on Monday, I felt so much better.
I mean, I think the work life balance is a difficult thing, but it's, it can be, I mean, I find it because I don't work at weekends either, and I mean, I think at least initially in teacher training, it's difficult to do,
Totally.
but again, maybe I would almost sort of say, okay, well, at least have one day, at least have, Saturday and, the kind of the rest of Sunday, maybe just work Sunday morning or just work Saturday morning, because you've got to be disciplined with yourself for not working as well.
Yeah, and I think during my PGCE, what I did was I gave myself Saturday morning that I worked, and then the rest of Saturday and Sunday I didn't, because I would have got ill otherwise. And I did a little bit of that last year. So if I needed to work, I worked on Sunday afternoon.
Yeah.
But I was very disciplined that I started that work at 1 o'clock. And then I said at 6 o'clock, I am not doing any more work. If it needs to be done, I can do it on Monday. There are occasions where you do need to work. So I know we're coming up into our mock week, and I may need to do a little bit of work at the weekend, but I need to also prioritise myself.
Yeah, no, and I think you're absolutely right, and it is hard to do, and it's very easy for us who are down the line a bit to sort of say, do this, do that, and hand out the advice. But I hope that people listening back to this and people who have listened in this evening have taken it in the manner in which it's intended, in that we've lived this ourselves, and for it's almost kind of, for what it's worth, here's kind of the sort of the pearls of wisdom that we've kind of picked up, or the things that I don't think we've said anything particularly groundbreaking, Hattie. I don't know how you feel, but it's all things that I think are definitely worth reiterating, and it's worth hearing again, because I do wish that I'd had sort of that in my year when I was teacher training as well, because it is worth reminding people, and even worth reminding ourselves, because I think even though I'm still I'm 7 years down the line at this point, so I think I'm a bit further along than you are. But we still need to kind of, some of the things I've said out loud this evening, I sort of thought, actually, you're a bit of a hypocrite, because you need to remind yourself that you need to do these things too, and you need to actually take a step back, and you need to prioritize. And I think actually there is nothing more sort of grounding than getting quite sick, as you well know, to be like, okay, maybe I need to do things a little bit differently.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, teaching's a job. It is a job. It's not who you are.
Yeah.
Yes, some people can see teaching as a lifestyle, and I can absolutely 100% get why that is. But this is your job. It is not you as a person. So remember that you existed as a person before you became a teacher, and you will, because there will be one day where you are no longer a teacher, whether that's through a career change or through retirement. So you will exist after being a teacher as well. Mm-hmm. So make sure you're also looking after yourself.
Most definitely. And you're a teacher until you decide you're not a teacher, not until somebody on Twitter decides you're not.
Yes, exactly.
Just remember that. Well, all that remains for me to say, Hattie, is thank you so much for joining me this evening. I have truly appreciated you coming on and being with me, and I hope we do get to do this again at some point, because it has been an absolute joy, and I'm so glad that I finally got to return the privilege, because obviously I've been on yours and now you've been on mine. So hopefully we can definitely chat again.
Yes, no, thank you so much for having me. It's been lovely.
Thank you, and please go and enjoy the rest of your evening. And chat soon.
Thank you.
So that was the lovely Hattie from Chronicles of a PGCE, and you can listen to some of her shows, including the one that I did with her via Spotify. I'm sure Hattie will correct me if I'm wrong there.
Yes, Apple Podcasts. All the links are on my bio.
Fantastic. Brilliant. Thank you for that, Hattie. And before I go, just a quick reminder of a few things as well. If you have enjoyed this evening's show and you think you would like to be a host and think you can do something like this, then we are looking for hosts. You will see in the top of the space there is the tweet that has been posted, and please DM the TTR account if you are interested, the Teachers Talk Radio account. Just drop an email address in saying, hey, I'm interested, can you send me an information pack? And we will do that for you. Honestly, over the last year and a bit, I have had so much fun doing this job. I have loved hosting. I do other bits and pieces as well. I admin for other shows, and honestly, Teachers Talk Radio has taken me in lots of different directions. I've met so many people. I get to chat to brilliant people like Hattie on a near-on weekly basis, so I can't sing its praises enough. So if you're sitting there thinking, do you know what, I'd like to give that a crack, then please do let us know, and we would love to speak to you. So that is the first thing. The other thing is just a reminder of our sponsor, who are the With a Slack group, who have lots of lovely career opportunities for you as well. Please just go to their website, which is www. Let me just make sure I get this right. Withaslackgroup.co.uk, and if it's the careers part you are interested in /careers, if not, just go and have a look on the website as well for lots of lovely webinars and information about lots of different things to do with schooling, learning, all manner of things, and it's well worth a look. Particularly well worth seeing when or if you can join those free webinars, and they are fantastic, so I thoroughly encourage that as well. I have talked a lot. I mean, I always talk a lot during these shows, but it has been absolutely fantastic. I think that it has been great to relive the PGC, the teacher training journey, and the early careers journey with Hattie. We've had very different experiences, but I think what the common theme is that a lot of the advice and a lot of the things that we're suggesting are very similar and do absolutely sort of ring true, regardless of whether you're secondary, whether you're in further education, whether you're a primary teacher, and whether you're early in career or whether you are early in your career, can't even speak anymore at this point, early in your career or even further along in your career. So please do look after yourselves. Please do take care.
You've been listening to Teachers Talk Radio. Tune in live and listen back at ttradio.org. We look forward to hearing from you next time on Teachers Talk Radio.